Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Let me ask you something brutal. How many times did they ignore your pain? How many times did you cry behind closed doors while they posted selfies like nothing happened, and you still care what they think? Oh, I see it. That little thought in your mind whispering, what if they think I don't care anymore if I stay silent? How dare you still care what they think, after they treated you like garbage, after they made you feel invisible, after they used your love like a doormat? How dare you, my friend? This isn't softness, it's survival now. You want them to feel the pain you felt. Then shut your mouth, go ghost, and let that silence scream. Because right now, someone out there is underestimating you, and the most savage move you can make is silence. No words, no explanations, just vanishing like smoke while their guilt builds like a storm they never saw coming. Hey folks, picture this. You're holding a torch in a pitch-black cave, lighting the way for someone who refuses to follow. They laugh, they wander off, they think the light will always be there, so you put the torch down and walk away. Now, let them fumble in the dark. That's what your silence does. This is not weakness. This is war strategy. This is psychological warfare with a smile. You gave them time, loyalty, forgiveness, chances. They mistook it for desperation. They confused your patience with fear. But now, you say nothing. You move in silence, and the silence is what kills them. See, most people think silence means defeat, that you're curled up crying in some corner. They don't know what real power looks like. Real power doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it disappears and lets their own guilt eat them alive. Real power stands still and watches the house they built on lies burn to ash. You gave them loyalty, and they gave you breadcrumbs. You handed them your heart, and they played with it like a toy. They thought you'd never leave, that you'd always check in, always reach out. But now all they hear is nothing. That nothing is louder than any scream. They expect chaos, an explosion, a fight, a breakdown. But you gave them a void, and that void, that quiet, still space, it's crushing. It makes them spiral. It makes them wonder if they were ever enough. And when guilt creeps in, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. Now, you're not the chaser. You're the ghost, the mystery. You're the one who doesn't explain, doesn't post, doesn't react. You've become the storm that shows no mercy. While they're stalking your socials, you're building a version of yourself so powerful, so unbothered, it makes them nauseous. You're not trying to win them back. You're trying to win you back. And every second of silence is a nail in the coffin of who you used to be. This silence isn't just pressure, it's punishment. And the longer you stay quiet, the more their own thoughts torture them. Let them sit in that guilt. Let them stew in the absence of your presence. Because sometimes the only way to find peace is to make your absence louder than their lies. No more soft, no more explaining, no more saving people who watched you drown. If you're done being the first to break, if you're ready to be the one who watches in silence while they crumble under the weight of their own guilt, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. Comment down below, "My silence is savage." Stay with me. It's about to get even darker. Number 1. The silence that screams. The quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. You want to know what really destroys someone. It's not the shouting, not the crying, not the desperate text paragraphs at 3 a.m. It's silence, cold, calculated, relentless. Not because you're ignoring them, but because you're finally hearing yourself. And it's about time. Imagine this. You're on a stage. You've poured your heart out, monologue after monologue, hoping they'd respond, understand, applaud. But they just sat there, arms crossed, smirking. So now, you walk off stage, no bow, no explanation. Curtain falls, and suddenly they're left in silence, haunted by everything they didn't hear when they had the chance. My friends, silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of power. You stop replying, and you take away more than just messages. You take away attention, you take away access, you take away their emotional lifeline, the hit of knowing you still care. And what's terrifying to them? That silence doesn't mean you're broken, it means you've woken up. It means you finally realize you were trying to rescue someone who was drowning you. It means the storm has moved inside you. They expected noise, they expected rage, they expected tears. Why? Because that's what they were used to. Your reactions were their fuel. Your pain fed their ego. Your presence made them feel powerful. And when that vanishes, when you go still, that's when they start to spiral. She or he expected a show. They expected you to lose control, to chase, to prove you still cared. Because attention, even in anger, is still attention. But when the phone stays silent, when the read receipt gets no follow-up, when your name doesn't show up in their notifications anymore, that's when guilt walks in. It's not revenge, it's a mirror, and they finally see themselves clearly. They remember the lies, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the half-truths, the emotional roller coasters they strapped you into. Every moment you stayed loyal while they made you question your own worth. Every time you forgave when they didn't even apologize. And you know what breaks them? Not your words, your stillness. Because they can't argue with silence. They can't twist silence. They can't feed off silence. It's like oxygen leaving the room. They panic. They suffocate. But this is not about punishing them. This is about saving yourself. Your silence is your boundary, your healing, your power. You don't do it hoping they miss you. You do it so you can finally hear yourself think without the noise of their chaos. You do it to rebuild your peace, brick by brick, with no one there to kick it over. This is hard, I know. Your mind will scream, say something, just one message, just one call. It'll tell you silence makes you look weak, that they might think you didn't care. But ask yourself this, why are you so afraid of what they think after all they've done? Why do you want validation from the very person who invalidated you for months? Why do you want closure from someone who slammed the door in your face without a second thought? That's the lie you've been sold, that you need their acknowledgement to heal. You don't. You need your silence. You need your space. You need the kind of peace that only comes when you stop explaining to people who never listened in the first place. So be the silence that screams. Be the ghost that haunts. Not because you tried, but because you stopped. Let them feel what you felt. Let them guess. Let them wonder. Let them suffer in the space they never thought you'd give them. And while they crumble in confusion, you rise in clarity. Remember, you're not the echo anymore. You're the void. You're not chasing. You're not proving. You're not asking to be seen. You are silence, and silence is sharp. It cuts deeper than words ever could. Comment below right now. I am the silence they fear. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that your silence isn't a pause. It's a full stop. Stay with me. The silence only gets louder from here. Number 2. Stop replaying the past. The moment they left you, they took the air out of the room, and in that breathless silence, your mind pressed play on the worst kind of movie. A twisted reel of good times laced with hidden betrayals. You remember the laughs, but forget how many of those laughs came after a lie. You remember the late-night talks, but not the silence that followed when you needed them most. You remember their arms, but not how those arms dropped you when your soul needed holding. And yet, here you are, rewinding, pausing, replaying, analyzing their every word like a detective searching for the missing clue to make it all make sense. But let me ask you something real, my friend. If they cared, would you even be asking these questions right now? If they were meant for your life, would they have left you bleeding in the middle of your loyalty? Let me break the lie wide open. What you're doing isn't healing. It's self-punishment dressed up as reflection. It's emotional quicksand. You think you're processing, but every step drags you deeper into what was instead of what is. And that's how you lose yourself. Not in their absence, but in your own refusal to close the door they slammed behind them. You want brutal truth? They're not thinking about that last text you sent. They're not losing sleep, wondering if you're okay. They're not replaying the night you broke, the call you begged on, or the silence that followed. But you are. You're still living in a version of reality where they mattered more than your peace. And I get it. I know the voice in your head says, if I could just understand what went wrong, maybe I'd feel better. But that's a trap. That's your mind begging for control over a storm that already passed. The lightning hit. The damage was done. And all you're doing now is standing in the ashes, hoping for a different fire. It's time to stop asking what changed in them and start asking what broke in you that allowed you to tolerate it. Why did you keep showing up for someone who kept disappearing? Why did you keep offering softness to someone who only came close to watch you crumble? Why did you carry a love that they dropped like it was disposable? Because that answer, that's your gold, that's your freedom, not in their apology, not in their return, but in your own decision to no longer need either. Your heart doesn't need closure, it needs command. And that command comes when you shut the movie off. When you delete the scenes that were never real love, just good acting. When you stop giving screen time to someone who walked out mid-script. And yeah, it's not easy. There will be days where your own brain will try to seduce you back into the memory. It will whisper, but what if? And that's where you become dangerous. Because you don't negotiate with ghosts. You don't chase what disrespected your presence. You don't relive pain and call it hope. You move, you build, you grow in silence. That's what Stoicism teaches. Not numbness, but power. Not forgetting, but refusing to let the past rent space in your mind for free. The strongest version of you is built in this silence. Every time you resist hitting rewind, you stack another brick in your comeback. You become less reactive, more grounded, less emotional, more unshakable. The pain may still echo, but it no longer commands the room. So let the past rot. Let the movie end. Let the story be finished without needing a rewrite. Because you, my friend, are not their memory. You are your own masterpiece under construction. Comment below. My peace is not in the past. Write it, own it, and press that like button if you're finally done bleeding for people who never brought you bandages. Subscribe and stay with me. This next part will change everything. Number 3. You are not their savior. There was a time when you saw them breaking, and your first instinct was to reach in, hold them, fix them. Not because they asked, not because it was your job, but because deep inside you convinced yourself that love meant healing someone else. That if you just loved them right, they'd finally wake up. That if you just held on longer, they'd finally see your worth. That if you poured more patience, more energy, more light, they'd change. But they didn't. They walked. And you're still standing there, gripping their pain like it's your responsibility. Still carrying their emotional baggage like your love is some kind of rehab facility. Still thinking that maybe if you show enough care, enough loyalty, enough forgiveness, they'll come back better. That's the fantasy. But it's not love. It's ego dressed up as rescue. You were not put here to fix broken people who won't even admit they're cracked. You are not their savior. You are not their therapist. You are not their emergency exit from the damage they refuse to clean up. You were their partner. You gave your best. You showed up. But they still chose to walk away, or maybe worse. They stayed just long enough to bleed you dry and leave once the well was empty. And now you're here, rehearsing how you could have saved them, still fantasizing about being the one who helped them finally change. But that fantasy isn't about them healing. It's about proving that your love was powerful enough to make them heal, that if they changed because of you, it means you mattered, that you were enough. But needing someone else's transformation to validate your value, that's not strength, that's self-abandonment. Read this slowly. Their wounds are not yours to stitch. Their chaos is not your job to calm. They showed you who they were, not once, but over and over. They revealed the patterns, the excuses, the emotional games, and every time you tried to pull them closer, they handed you more of their pain and less of their respect. And what did you do? You carried it all like some warrior of love, thinking that carrying the weight would earn you loyalty. But every time you tried to save them, you drowned a little more. This isn't a love story. It's a warning. Because love doesn't mean sacrifice without return. Love doesn't mean proving your worth by cleaning up someone else's emotional mess. Real strength isn't in how much pain you can carry. It's in how quickly you stop carrying what was never yours. You think real love is about bleeding for someone else? No. Real love starts when you stop betraying yourself in the name of being there for someone who wouldn't even show up for you. You are not their savior. Let them face their own storms. Let them fall apart on their own time, in their own way. Because if they can't face their own reflection, then what are you even saving? You're not their protector. You're not their parent. You're not the one who's supposed to fix what they refuse to acknowledge. And here's the shift. When you finally stop trying to fix them, you start healing you. You get your energy back. You get your time back. You get your clarity back. You stop pouring into a black hole and start building something whole, without them in the center of it. And that's when the game changes. You become magnetic, not because you're cold, but because you've finally built your fire without needing their spark. You stop chasing the idea of being the one who saved them and become the one who saved yourself. And that power, that peace, it's louder than any apology they never gave you. So say it with your chest. You are done fixing people who broke you. Write it in the comments. I am not their savior. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you've finally drawn the line. Hit that like button if you're done betraying your peace to prove your worth. Subscribe and stay with me, because next we're going even deeper. Number 4. Your value didn't die with their love. They stopped loving you. So what? Read that again and let it cut through the fog in your chest. They stopped loving you. But that doesn't mean your value vanished with their feelings. Too many people crumble after rejection like their entire worth was hanging by a thread. And that thread was someone else's affection. But here's the truth that slaps harder than heartbreak. Their love was never the measuring stick of your worth. Their opinion, just one voice in a noisy world. One perspective shaped by their fears, their traumas, their unhealed mess. And you let that voice get so loud, it started to sound like the truth. But it wasn't. It was just their lens, cracked, cloudy, and incomplete. They didn't see you clearly, and when they left, they didn't take your value with them. All they did was expose that you tied too much of it to their ability to see you. Let that land. They didn't break you. They revealed you. They showed you where the holes were in your foundation, where your self-worth was resting on shaky ground, where you were still hoping that someone else's approval could finally make you feel enough. And now you know that's not strength. That's dependency dressed as devotion. You think your crown disappeared because they stopped seeing it. No. The crown never left. They just chose to look away. And their blindness is not your burden to carry. You don't stop being valuable because someone failed to recognize you. A diamond buried in dirt is still a diamond. A throne ignored is still a throne. And you, my friend, are still worthy, whether they clap for you or not, whether they come back or not, whether they love you again or disappear forever. Their feelings don't get to rewrite your truth. But here's where the real danger comes in, when you start believing that because they walked, you must be broken, that maybe you were too much, or not enough, or just the wrong shape of love. That's how self-doubt creeps in. That's how begging happens. That's how people shrink, trying to become lovable again. But you were never too much. You were never not enough. You were just too real for someone still lying to themselves. Don't let their exit become your identity, because if you do, you'll spend your life trying to be small enough to fit into people's comfort zones. You'll perform, you'll bend, you'll beg, just to earn scraps of validation. And that's not love, that's self-erasure. Your job isn't to convince anyone to value you. Your job is to remember that you are already valuable. You were valuable before they met you. You'll be valuable long after they forget your name. Because real worth doesn't vanish with someone's absence. It's carved into your character, not borrowed from someone else's affection. So if they couldn't handle your depth, your loyalty, your presence, that's not your failure, that's their capacity. And if they walked away from something real, something rare, something you gave your whole heart to, then guess what? They didn't lose someone who was begging to be loved. They lost someone who was brave enough to love at full volume. And your lesson isn't to chase them back. Your lesson is to never again hand over your crown to someone just because they smiled at you sweet enough. Your lesson is to rebuild yourself, not in spite of the loss, but because of it. Stronger, sharper, wiser. This is where it all flips. This is the chapter where you become unshakable, not because no one leaves, but because no one's leaving shakes your identity anymore. Comment below, "My worth never left." Write it, say it. Show the world around you that you're no longer available for emotional clearance sales. If you're done waiting for someone else to define your value, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next? That's where the real shift begins. Number 5. Attraction through indifference. You want them to feel it, to really feel the loss, not just in their head, but deep in their gut. Then stop caring. Fully. Not performative silence, not pretending to move on while secretly checking their stories, posting songs, or leaving subtle clues. That's not detachment. That's desperation wearing a mask. And desperation stinks. It lingers. It's obvious. People can feel it, even through the screen. You think you're being clever, crafting a cryptic caption, posting a gym pic, sharing a song that screams, "I'm fine." But underneath all that, you're still orbiting them, still spinning in their gravitational pull. And trust me, they know. They can feel when you're still available, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But real power, it's in disappearing, not physically, but energetically. When you stop orbiting them, when your world no longer includes their shadow, that's when they feel the shift. Because up until now, they believed they had access to you, even after the goodbye, even after the disrespect, even after the silence. They assumed that a single message could bring you running, that you were still checking, still hoping, still waiting. And most people are. They leave a door cracked open. They don't block, but they don't detach. They linger in the DM shadows, stay subscribed to the silence, hoping for a sign. But that's not strength. That's weakness dressed up in false patience. Let me tell you how real attraction is created. It's born in mystery, in distance, in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't look like pain. It looks like peace. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not playing games. You're just done. Completely, quietly, indifferently. You stop reacting. You stop checking. You stop caring. And suddenly, they don't know who you are anymore. They go to check on you, and there's nothing to check. No cryptic quotes. No late-night songs. No likes. No energy. No trace of you feeding their ego from the shadows. That's silence. That's gravity. You don't chase. You create a pull. And people feel that pull strongest when you're moving forward, not looking back. You become attractive the moment you don't need to be seen, when your world keeps spinning whether they look or not, when your joy doesn't depend on their attention. That's when they feel it. That tension, that wait, what happened? That creeping panic that maybe, just maybe, they've lost their grip on you. And if they lost their grip, that means they were gripping in the first place. But you never feed that curiosity. You let it starve. You keep moving. You keep building, not to prove a point, not to inspire regret, but because you finally realize you were never meant to shrink into someone else's field of vision. You were meant to expand until you became your own universe. Now, here's the truth that breaks most people. The second you fold, the second you reach out, the second you double-tap a photo or view that story, it's over. The spell breaks. The mystery is gone. And they relax. They relax because they know you're still available, still waiting, still watching, and that kills all your power. You want leverage? Take away access. Gently, quietly, completely. Let them feel the closed door, not slammed in anger, but sealed in indifference. Because indifference isn't cruelty, it's clarity, it's peace, it's the powerful act of no longer performing for someone who wasn't clapping. They walked away. Let them feel what distance really means. No noise, no warning, no second chances, just absence. Comment below. I create gravity, not noise. Write it, live it, be it. And if you're ready to pull your energy back for good, like this video, subscribe and stay close. What comes next will make you untouchable. Number 6. Emotional mastery is power. Let's call it what it is. Every time you react, you hand over the keys to your power. Every emotionally charged message, every angry rant, every regret-soaked late-night text. That's not expression, that's a transaction. And guess what you just sold? Your control, and you sold it cheap. In every relationship dynamic, the one who masters their emotions owns the frame. They set the tempo. They decide when, how, and if energy is exchanged. And if you're still out here letting someone else push your buttons like you're a vending machine, don't be surprised when they stop seeing you as a mystery and start seeing you as a toy. But here's the lie most people believe, that being emotional means being real, that if you don't show your feelings, you're cold. No, Stoicism doesn't teach numbness. It teaches unshakable calm in the middle of chaos. It teaches the strength to breathe when your heart wants to scream. It teaches presence over panic, power over performance. You want them to feel your absence. You want to shift the entire energy between you. Then stop reacting. Stop dancing for attention. Stop acting out of hurt, because that's exactly what they expect. They hurt you, and now they're waiting for the show, the outburst, the meltdown, the sub-posts, The sad quotes, the emotional check-ins disguised as just wanted to say hi. They want to know they still own space in your head. And if you give them that reaction, even a little, game over, they win. But when you don't flinch, when you go still instead of explosive, that silence shakes them, because now they're wondering, why aren't you chasing? Why aren't you reacting? Did you already move on? Have they lost their grip? That's where your power lives, not in saying more, but in saying nothing, because emotional silence, when it comes from someone who once gave you everything, is deafening. You can't fake this kind of mastery. It's not about pretending, it's about training, brick by brick, moment by moment. You have to teach yourself to hold the impulse, to feel the wave, but not ride it into disaster. You don't post for attention, you don't drunk text, you don't lash out in comments or cry into your camera. You sit with the storm, you breathe, you process, you don't respond to bait. And that, my friend, makes you dangerous in a world where people are addicted to reaction. The more you train your mind, the sharper your decisions get. You stop being driven by emotion and start being guided by vision. You don't fall apart, you level up. You take the same pain that once had you on the floor and build something from it. A body, a business, a boundary. That's what they didn't expect. That instead of collapsing, you'd rise. That instead of needing them to feel whole, you'd become whole in the silence they left behind. You stop trying to be understood by someone who barely understood themselves, and instead you understand you, your power, your path, your purpose, and in that space you attract differently. You become magnetic, not because you're cold, but because you're stable. And stability is rare, it's sacred, it's respected. In a world full of reactors, you become the one who leads. You don't spiral, you ascend. Comment below, I choose calm over chaos. Let the world know that you've taken your power back, not by shouting, but by not needing to. If you're done handing your emotions away like candy, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because next, we're stepping into the final move that flips everything. Number 7. Rebuild in the shadows. This is the part they never see coming. Not just your silence, but what that silence turns into. Evolution, reinvention, power that doesn't shout, doesn't post, doesn't need validation. You're not just ghosting, you're vanishing into focus, into fire, into the version of yourself they never believed you'd become, while they're out there pretending they're unbothered, posting fake happiness, trying to trigger you with smiles that don't reach the eyes. You're in the shadows, working, quietly, brutally, building something unrecognizable, not for attention, not for revenge, but because you finally remembered who you are when nobody's clapping. This is where most people slip. They show progress too soon. They want to be seen. They post gym selfies hoping someone's watching. They change their clothes, their hair, their captions. But it's not transformation. It's performance. It's thirst for acknowledgement, dressed up as healing. And that's not power. That's dependency in disguise. Real power. It's what happens when you disappear. Not out of weakness, but out of intention. When you stop needing anyone to witness your comeback. When you stop performing and start becoming. You hit the gym, not to flex, but to fortify. You chase the goal, not to prove a point, but to buy back your freedom. You go silent, not to confuse them, but to hear yourself again. You read, you lift, you meditate, you hustle, you disconnect from anything that makes you beg to be noticed, and reconnect with everything that makes you undeniable. That's when the transformation goes deep. That's when it becomes dangerous. Because now you're not chasing applause. You're building so that when you walk back into the world, you own the room without saying a word. That's Stoicism. That's discipline. That's spiritual silence forged into armor. You don't need a post to prove your progress. Your aura will say it louder than any caption ever could. And here's the plot twist they never saw coming. When you no longer need them to see your glow up, that's when they do. That's when guilt creeps in. That's when the what-ifs start clawing at their chest. Because now they don't recognize you, not the old version they walked away from. That version's gone, dead, buried. This one, calm, cold, focused, silent. The one who doesn't call, doesn't chase, doesn't flinch. That version, that is what keeps them up at night. And you? You didn't rise to get a reaction. You rose because you refused to stay broken. You got tired of bleeding in public for people who never brought you a bandage. So you bled in private. You rebuilt in silence. You created a version of yourself they were never ready for. That's the win. Not revenge, not attention, but self-respect rebuilt brick by brick in the dark until you became the light. And when that light shines, it doesn't ask permission, it doesn't seek forgiveness. It just walks in and makes everything that left feel the chill of what they'll never touch again. Comment below. I rebuild in silence. Say it, show it, be it. Hit the like button if you're done performing for people who disappeared. Subscribe and stay close, because next we close the loop with the move that ends all games. Number 8, make them face the echo. You want to know what real regret sounds like? Silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the meditative kind. The kind that echoes in the places where your presence used to live. The kind that rings loud in the middle of the night when they open their phone and see nothing. No call, no text, no notification. Just the digital proof that your energy is gone and it's not coming back. That's the echo, and it only gets louder with time. At first, they're fine, laughing, posting, pretending. They think they've won the breakup, that they're ahead because they left first or stopped replying faster. They expected chaos. They expected noise. They expected you to beg, to crack, to send that last emotional message, the one that says, I miss you, in 15 different ways. But it never came. Instead, they got silence. And that silence, it doesn't just hurt, it haunts. Because now they're alone, not just physically, but emotionally, alone with the version of themselves they were never ready to meet, the one without you, the one who has to sit in the consequences of their own choices, the one who has to hear the echo of everything you didn't say. No distractions, no attention, no energy, just emptiness, and the guilt starts crawling in. You see, when you go silent, truly silent, you don't just remove words. You remove comfort. You remove reassurance. You remove the emotional safety net they thought would always be there. And suddenly, they're face to face with a mirror that doesn't lie. A mirror that shows them the games they played, the things they said, the moments they dismissed your love like it was disposable. And now they replay your last words. They scroll through old messages. They measure every new person against your memory, and none of it hits the same, because no one else will ever be as available, as loyal, as real. Why? Because you're no longer chasing, because you're no longer trying to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. That's what hits them, not the silence, but what the silence represents, that you're no longer reachable, that the version of you who would have folded, explained, begged, that version is dead, gone, buried in the grave they helped dig. And now they're left with silence, the kind of silence that wraps around them when they try to sleep, the kind that makes them wonder if you've moved on, if you're with someone better, if you ever think about them at all. The silence becomes a question, a mirror, a weight, and eventually a lesson. And you don't break the silence. You don't rescue them from the echo. You let them hear it, fully, deeply, repeatedly, because that echo is your truth bouncing off the walls of their denial. That echo says, you walked away with dignity. You never begged. You didn't collapse. You rose. That's what they feel now. Not your absence, your growth. They feel it every time they reach for their phone and pause, because reaching out would mean admitting they messed up. Because texting you now means facing a version of you they no longer have access to. A version that doesn't chase chaos. A version that doesn't lower themselves just to be remembered. So let them sit with it. Let them face the echo. Let them replay every moment they underestimated you, and let that regret build until it breaks them open from the inside. Not because you want revenge, but because silence is the justice, and the echo, that's the sentence. Comment below. Let the echo teach them. Hit the like button if you're done explaining yourself to people who never listened. Subscribe and stay with me, because the silence, it's just the beginning of your power. Number 9, they always circle back. You think it's over, that they've moved on, that while you're out here bleeding in silence, rebuilding in the shadows, they're laughing, thriving, forgetting you, that you were just a chapter and they've already turned the page. But here's a truth that doesn't get talked about enough. They always circle back. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but they do, because people never forget the one who didn't beg, the one who vanished with dignity, the one who stayed silent, rebuilt, and never looked back. That kind of energy, it burns into memory. You didn't collapse, you didn't perform, you didn't send one last message hoping they'd see your worth. You detached, and that silence, that strength, that lack of need, it leaves a mark. It starts quietly, a view on your story, a random like, a vague message. Hey, just checking in. Don't be fooled. That's not coincidence. That's a radar ping. They're scanning for access, seeing if the door's still cracked open, seeing if you still care enough to come running. But you already know what this is. It's not love, it's fear, it's curiosity, it's guilt creeping back in, it's regret wearing a friendly smile, it's them realizing that while they were chasing noise, you became peace. While they looked for attention, you built presence. While they played games, you played for keeps, and walked away when they folded. See, they come back when they realize they can't replace you, when the person they ran to lacks your depth, when the new energy feels surface level, when the grass they thought would be greener turns out to be fake turf, shiny on the outside, hollow underneath. And suddenly, silence becomes a roar in their mind, a loud reminder of what they gave up. Because what they remember isn't the disagreements or the tension, it's how you made them feel when they were safe with you, seen, understood, chosen, and they want that feeling back. But here's what they don't expect. You're not that person anymore. You've changed, you've hardened, not bitter, just wiser, not cold, just selective. You've cut off access, not out of anger, but out of evolution, because the version of you that tolerated confusion and chaos, that version no longer lives here. And when they reach out, you don't need to clap back. You don't need to flex. You don't even need to reply. Your silence is the new language. Your life is the proof. Your growth is the echo they can't escape. That's the real closure. That's the real power. And if you do respond, it's not from the same place, not from longing, not from pain, from control, from clarity, from strength that can't be shaken by someone who once mistook your heart for convenience. You're not here to entertain the past. You're not here to reopen chapters that already ended in silence. You're not here to explain your glow-up to someone who couldn't see your light when they had it. Because now, you're the storm they can't predict, the peace they can't find, the energy they can't recreate. And the truth is simple, they always circle back. But by the time they do, You won't need them to. Comment below. They lost access to me. Type it. Own it. Let the world feel it. If you've outgrown the version of yourself that once begged for clarity, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because the next chapter is not about them, it's about your legacy. And that brings us full circle. If you've made it this far, you already know the silence, the detachment, the rebuild. It was never about them. It was about you reclaiming your power. No more chasing, no more proving. Just peace, clarity, and control. Let them live with the echo. You rise without noise. If this hit something deep, show it. Like the video. Subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise, and share this with someone who needs the reminder they don't define your worth. You do. Drop a comment below. I choose myself. And remember, the comeback is always silent.